Hello and happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's new episode of Breakfast with Boom. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL. And ladies and gentlemen, for the next 90-ish minutes, get ready. We're going to hang out with you on a gorgeous Friday. It's cold here in New York. I'm loving it because obviously it's the winter. And we're going to get into two massive topics, one of which, as you can see by the header, is going to be the 2024 gaming year in review. And we are going to come at this from a multitude of points of contention. If there's anything that I think is, at least for me, striking, besides the unbelievable plethora of games that we had to play on all consoles, on all platforms, regardless of where you reside, I think the resounding disappointment for me as a human being is the amount of layoffs that happened to an industry that seems to continuously grow. And, obviously, there were more people laid off in the first 6 months of 2024 than there all of 2023. That's a scary disposition. And I think a lot of the times, maybe it's not something you want to talk about. Maybe it's not something that you want to think about because a lot of us are just, we're stuck in our own lives. We're doing our own things and we're here to play games. We're here to talk about games. But I think that's a conversation that should be had, even if it's only a pinch of a conversation, because obviously it's not for me personally. And I'll give you my hot take after we do, we start the topic. Yes, I had an amazing time playing games. I've rediscovered my love for Call of Duty multiplayer, which I haven't had since the 360 days. I found to appreciate smaller devs even more because some of the biggest games came the way of smaller devs, right? Smaller teams. We'll get into all of that. Second half of the show, folks, and I was telling Crispy, I had a bit of an epiphany obviously this is usually what happens with me. I don't know about so much about you. Most of the titles for my shows were drummed up by me just doing mundane things, shopping in Stop and Shop, doing the grocery shopping, standing online waiting to pay, doing the laundry, sweeping or mopping or whatever. A lot of the things that usually happen to me, I'm always thinking about gaming in one way or another, or listening to a podcast as I do these things. And a lot of the times, topics you pop in. Today, more specifically, the one topic that I really want to drive home on second half of show, folks, is the Game Pass scenario in 2025. Not just the first party roadmap that we know is coming. We've talked about that, and we will continue to talk about that as the games start to release, because it is going to be a bombastic year for Xbox gamers. But that's not the crux of the conversation. Nope, that's not it at all. As a matter of fact, I want to bring in the PlayStation gamers and the Nintendo gamers into the conversation. And I think that we are at a crossroad here, ladies and gentlemen, where the value proposition of what Xbox from first party is doing in 2025, with, of course, many of the third party, second party, and indie partners that they have, and those games that will be dumped into Xbox Game Pass. And obviously, January is already shaping up to be something huge. There was a rumor that dropped today that Diablo 1 is going to be dropped into Game Pass. UFC 2025. We know that the new Sniper Elite is going to be in there. And there's a bunch of others to start off January for Game Pass. I think we are at this moment in time where if you are a PlayStation only gamer, or you are a Nintendo only gamer, there's going to come a point in your when you're looking at your wallet and be like, wait a second, I love these platforms. I love my PlayStation. I love my Nintendo. But that Xbox, you're looking over there and you're like, man, that grass is pretty green over there, and they're getting some value. Like I think it's hard to deny anyone, and I don't care what your job title is. I don't care how many zeros that you make. Everybody wants to save money one way or another. Some people do it by cutting corners. Some people buy the store brand rather than the name brand to save money. That's life, folks. That is what 2024 and 2023 and 2025 is probably going to be very much similar in regards to, your paycheck just not going as far as it used to. And I think that Game Pass is going to be a conversation for a lot of people that you look over and be like, for $20 a month, I can get Call of Duty, Doom, Fable, the potential of Gears E-Day, Oblivion Remake, South of Midnight, Outer Worlds 2, Atomic Fall. There's just so many games that are going to be in the service. I think you're going to see a lot of people transition. I'm not saying that people are going to leave their platform of choice. Nope. I'm saying that, if you have a nice beefy PC, maybe you join Game Pass that way. Or maybe you wait for a sale and you buy an S. Like Xbox isn't isn't going to be all of a sudden become your platform of choice, but maybe it will be. It's going to be an interesting conversation. But Crispy Bomb, brother, thank you so much for being here. That's twice in 1 week. Love to have you here, brother. Great that you're back. How you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling pretty good. We got a lot to talk about, and it seems like the journalism aspect, like actual journalists, are somewhat not like beating down Xbox as much. And you can kind of see that with the narratives that are running, and you don't see a lot of journalists really saying anything negative, which that's what we're used to. So,
yep.
I think that's a big deal, because at the end of the day, in the second topic, Xbox said we want to be the Netflix of gaming. And if you have Netflix right now, they dropped a lot in the past, 2 weeks. And, some of it was subpar, some of it was really good. And, I think that's what Xbox is looking and saying, okay, like we have AAA games, we have AA, and we have single A games, and you all can feast on them and pay that $20. So I think we're at the cusp of something that is going to be undeniable at some point.
Yeah, and again, look, if it was just from a fiscal point of view and the games in their quality and their substance were not matching, I can understand, Fuzzy Belvedere, that you'd be like, yeah, you know what? It's just not for me because of X, Y, and Z. I would get that. But I think just based on some of the journalistic rhetoric in a couple that has transpired in the last couple of weeks since the release of Indiana Jones. I mean, look, Eurogamer gives Indiana Jones their Game of the Year title, and look, that we know that they're very Sony favorites. If you would have asked me at the beginning of the year who was it going to be their Game of the Year, I would have told you Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Stellar Blade, or one of those exclusives for PlayStation, maybe even Astrobot, because Astrobot was a phenomenal game. And it turns out that Indiana Jones won it. That's a really big deal. The turning of the page, if you will, that Crispy was just talking about, I think you're going to start seeing to the point where Xbox is undeniable moving forward. But good morning, kind sir. How you feeling?
Good morning. Glad to be here with everyone. Glad we got Crispy in here this morning as well. And man, 2024 has been an awesome year as far as gaming is concerned. And I think it's gotten to the point between Game Pass and just all of the studios and teams that Xbox has working on games. It is undeniable at this point. There's going to be a constant flow of games at this point, to the point where they could be their own E3 just within their own walls, kind of thing. Yep. And that you don't even have to worry about second party deals or even third party software in general. But I think it's time for people to recognize the games and stop hating on Xbox in the sense of it not being their primary platform. Xbox is just looking to be a platform for gaming in general. And if you're not already in the ecosystem, you probably wind up kicking yourself before 2025 is finished. But yeah, we got a lot to get into. I got my own 2 cents on it as well. But yeah, it's awesome to be here with you guys. Yeah, we're going to have a good one.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is going to be a fantastic, again, you look to the show to be about 90 minutes, because again, this is one of those conversations where there's no script here, folks. We're gonna talk about the industry. We're gonna talk about gaming. People are gonna give their opinions. We may even get a crispy rant, which of course is always fantastic. Everyone's already talking about it in the chat, because there's nothing wrong with a great Friday to start with crispy rant. So look, let's get right into it. But before we do, I got to thank Spartan661 for the ridiculous generosity this early in the morning. He has gifted, ladies and gentlemen, 5 double barrel gaming memberships. Brother, that is very kind of you to start us off for the year. We truly appreciate it. And again, obviously, the same way we gave back to the community in 2024, we will turn these generous gifts into things that we give out and give back to the community. And thanks to Spartan661 for that to start us off today. But look, Crispy Bomb, you were hesitant this morning because you didn't want to sound like you were repeating yourself, because we did have our talk on Tuesday where we broke down the Xbox in 2024. But being that this is a multi-plat show, I'm very interested to get your hot take of the gaming industry in 2024. And again, this is one of those things where it's a conversational podcast. There are no right and wrong answers. There's nothing scripted. For you, what were some of the standouts for 2024? And what were some of the things that might or may have let you down for the gaming industry as a whole?
Well, see, you gotta look at the landscape. It's like, I'm the type of consumer where I look at, what have you done for me lately type status. So being that, I work as much as I do, and like this is the first time in I'd say 5 months that I've been on Breakfast with Boom, which is like my home. I feel like I feel at home here. It was so long, my tenure with Breakfast with Boom. So I look at the landscape and I say, Xbox has given me any game I could possibly want. And I think they are just like going to double down on this, and they're going to ignore the naysayers for once. And I think they need to ignore it a little bit more in this upcoming year. But I feel like they went through their tribulations at the beginning of the year. They said what they said, they did what they did, and now you're starting to see the fruits of the labor. And it really starts with, I think Indiana Jones is a pivotal moment. Even Hellblade, you could say at the beginning of the year, mid beginning of the year, was a pivotal moment. And them saying, hey, we have the visual narrative now. We gave you a third-person game.
Great point.
We gave you a first-person game and built both in the 2 engines that we seem to be going for at this point. And even Digital Foundry could not deny us that we have the visuals for you and 2 different aspects of play style and gaming itself. And they both, from what I hear from anybody that's played those games, made you feel the characters' emotions, or made you feel the aspects of the games that not necessarily would be like thrown off the page like, hey, this is here, you must play this. But more or less, once you start playing it, you feel something. And I think gaming has lost that in a way, and I think we're starting to see Xbox really fold into that and say, no, it hasn't. We have games like a lot of people like myself are like, next year is going to be crazy. And really, you want to see the feels, go look at reactions, because there's hundreds of reactions to Gears of War E-Day being announced. And this is where I go and say, like, I re-downloaded Doom Eternal because of all the talk about the Halo Doom crossover. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, isn't this what they want though? Like, they have done so much. They have done things that we consider egregious at times. And to some of us say it was great or it's forward thinking. Some of us say, no, we shouldn't do that. And I'm really sitting here like, okay, but we let Gears cook and look at the reaction. Why not let Halo cook for 6 years? I know some of you guys love Halo so much, but let it cook. They changed the studio name. They're doing basically the same thing they did. They went from Black Tusk Studios to the Coalition. Okay, like let them cook. Bring in actual Halo fans because that's what Gears has done. I mean, with that E-Day trailer, that's what I say. You got to bring in people that actually care about the IP. You know, IP is everything at this point. We're talking billion-dollar IPs. That's what we're talking about here. Okay, like games that have, 6 iterations, plus. So I say like certain games, they need to really nurture and actually show the respect they deserve and not, half-hearted. And I think Xbox is finally starting to get it. I think, yes, that's going to involve going a little bit multi-plat at times. Does that take away from the success that, the Xbox Game Studios have? No. But I think we're at a point where even journalists are starting to say, writing's on the wall, man. You want to say, oh, they're just, they have way too much money and that's what they can do, or they're investing in the future of gaming. That's on you. But I feel like you've seen what they're capable of, and this is only scratching the surface. And I think once they just kick the door down, there's going to be a lot of people that are not happy. And there's also going to be a lot of people that are like, what's this train wreck going on over here? Man, this game looks really good. So, 2024 has been kind of, like it ended well, like really well, but the beginning was So can we see them fold that into learning from their experience and say, well, we should start the year pretty good too, not to just wait until Hellblade 2 like we did, kind of. You know what I mean? Yeah, we had our little, third-party games, stuff like that, were in Game Pass. But at the end of the day, like, it really came down to people were waiting for Hellblade, which, hey, a lot of awards it's gotten, and then you bookend the year with Indiana Jones. Even though it's coming to PlayStation, I don't see a lot of people saying that. Like, hey, this is not worthy of anything, or it's, even going like, I want it only to be on Xbox. I mean, I think that's why Disney is talking about, doing multiple games, because Xbox is agnostic and being like, we'll do whatever is going to be right for the gamer. And I think it's going to take a long, hard road this year, but it's going to be pretty incredible at the end, in my opinion.
I mean, great points all around. I think you're onto something. Look, the start of 2024, I clearly remember the podcast saying that if it was me, I wouldn't give PlayStation a freaking thing. It would be, again, I would have run it like Peter Moore. I've said that 1,000 times before, and he ran a tight ship. I love Peter. I think he is a phenomenal member of the industry. He has been for years. He literally did things that no one has done before. Getting tattoos, and he was just so bombastic the way his persona was. But if there's one thing that I give myself a bit credit is not being left behind. Like, I'm an old dog. I'm the old guard, and I have certain sensibilities and opinions that probably will never change. I have a strong feeling, and I don't think it's, again, I'm never going to quote unquote bend the knee to see Halo, Gears, or Forza on a PlayStation. But that's because I'm an old man. And you know what? I understand where my faults lie. The industry is changing. The industry has changed. It will continue to manifest into things that we never thought were possible. I know we make fun of it, cats and dogs playing together, in harmony, like they said in Ghostbusters, right? Like, PlayStation games are going to be on Xbox games are going to be on PlayStation. Nintendo, look, I don't discount them. They're one of my favorite brands. I have been a Nintendo fanboy since 1985. Now, if you give me, a Sega versus a Nintendo, I'm sorry, Nintendo, I love you and everything, but I'm gonna go Sega because I've been a Sega kid forever. But where gaming is not where it's going to be in the future, and that future is now. And things are happening, things are changing. Some of the stuff I will have, has haphazardly be like, yeah, I guess, but listen, it is what it is. And Crispy's onto something here. I think that we are, when you look back at 2024, at least for me, I've said it quite a bit during the last couple of weeks, that there's been a lot of peaks and valleys. For me, the valleys or the low points of 2024 has to be the human factor. I think a lot of us overlook that, and I'm not saying that you're doing it on purpose. I think that when you hear 1,000 people lost their jobs, it's egregious on any level. But unless you're one of those people, you don't have the same. You can't equate their feeling. If it hasn't happened to you, if you're working, and hopefully that you are, and you're getting your salary, and you're not worrying about, holy shit, how am I going to pay April's rent because I just got laid off? You have feelings for these people, but you don't equate it as well. And I think a lot of us just want our games, and we want to go play our games, and we want to retreat to play these games because the world kind of sucks sometimes. And that's why we play games, right? Like, that is why you are so into a particular game, because you drowned out the rest of the world. And there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of us do that. Sometimes you just need to retreat from the world, put on a pair of headphones, shut the lights, and get into the character and play the game that you're playing, and just enjoy your time, whether that be 20 minutes or 20 hours, right? That is what we do as gamers. But there are, again, a lot of highlights for 2024. Again, as someone, and look, I'm going to keep saying it because I like being transparent. I like putting myself out there. Even if I get the virtual tomatoes, it's fine, right? But as someone who runs an entire household based on a pension, it is sometimes there are difficult decisions where there is a game that in the past I don't even think, I just buy. That's not the case anymore. I need to be an adult. And again, Mrs. Boom and I, we're doing pretty damn good, to be honest with you. So we're not hurting, but you have to be more forward thinking, I should say, about how you spend on a collector's edition that's $300. And that's just the way it is. And again, the value proposition, which we're going to get into the second half of the show, because I think that 2025, the same way we're starting to see the journalistic community kind of turn a little bit. I'm not saying that they're going to start dumping on PlayStation like they did in the PlayStation 3 days. What I'm suggesting is that we are at a point where Xbox has become undeniable. You can no longer look at Xbox as, the redheaded stepchild, or the little brother or the little sister. That they have walked into the room, and I hate to say this, and people may push back on this, they are the big man on campus now. They're the guy that was beat up in high school, right? In their sophomore year, right? Got sand kicked in their face. Remember the comics? You guys are old. You guys remember. Remember the back of the comic books? They would show like the guy, he was like a little skinny weakling guy, and he got the sand kicked in his face at the beach. And then the next season, this guy comes back and he's cock D. And now he beats up the bully. And now all the girls are hanging on him, right? That's Xbox, folks. You may not want to admit it if you're a PlayStation guy or gal, if you're a Nintendo fan, but Xbox is the big man on campus. As a publisher, they're the biggest publisher in gaming. They outclass EA, they outclass Take-Two, they outclass Ubisoft and Nintendo and PlayStation, and all of their games are going to be everywhere. And it's hard to deny that. And what's interesting, and again, this is where we get to the second half of the show, and after we get Fuzzy's hot take on 2024, this is where Xbox Game Pass becomes almost undeniable. Like I think that if you don't have Xbox Game Pass, I think you're doing it wrong, folks. I really do, especially from the amount of games that are going to be in there. There's got to be a point where if you are a diehard gamer and you look to Xbox first party plus all of the indies and the second party deals and the third party deals, you're gonna have to at one point be like, you know what? I honestly can no longer be like, no, I don't want an Xbox. And you know what? You don't have to get an Xbox. You can pretty much play anywhere you want now, and that's the beauty of, well, this is an Xbox. But listen, Fuzzy, 2024 levied a lot of really great games. There were, again, a lot of highs and lows. The layoffs, at least for me, are probably the worst of it all because of the human element that a lot of people, and again, no offense to you if it doesn't matter to you. I get it. I get if it's not happening to you, maybe it doesn't matter. But as someone that is as plugged in as I am, and I do this show 5 days a week, it bothers me that people lost a job because I'm not worrying about paying my rent because I retired, thankfully. But that doesn't mean that I don't worry. And now some of these people that make the games that we love, they don't have a job anymore. So that to me is the lowest point of the year. But I want to get your hot takes. What were the standouts for you in 2024?
I think the biggest standout for me is, and we're supposed to talk about this more so later on in the show, but for me, the biggest standout was Game Pass and everything it delivered this year. The beginning of the year, I know as far as first party, some people thought it was a little bit on the light side, but there were still things still going into the service throughout the year. But that being said, I try to look at it as also being retired. How much money am I saving? How much fun am I having? The layoffs, yes, they are a low spot or a heavy spot as far as my outlook on gaming in 2024. But I try not to focus on that as much, just because it doesn't seem like we've come to a resolution or a settled time period where things are stabilized. Like, I think there's still going to be a flux of layoffs, although we don't hear about it as much at the current moment. There's still a few smaller studios that are kind of struggling to keep the lights on kind of deal at this point. And we still haven't seen all of the fallout from what was that other publisher that basically banked on the handshake.
The one that owns Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal. Holy crap. I'm
having a brain fart. So
I help us out, folks. Help us out.
Something with an E, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah. What's the name of that publisher? Oh my god. We'll get to it. Hold on. I'll find it.
With that, yeah. But with all of that being said, Embracer Group. Thank you. When it comes to how the employees in that space are doing, there are some better outlooks as far as, yes, they're now starting to be able to unionize. That's something that I know wasn't a thing in gaming or even considered to be a thing in gaming for years. And now after the merger, Microsoft has kind of opened up that door. At some point, I'm pretty sure they will look at some of it as like, maybe that wasn't the best idea, but I think overall for the workspace moving forward, I think it is something that's in the best interest of, the future of gaming as from the gamer standpoint and the industry as a whole. So that is kind of a positive in the sea of negative with layoffs and things like that. But I want to move past that only because there's still so much stuff in development. There are so many new studios. Like it's not a guarantee, but it's like for almost every studio that closes, there's 2 or 3 that, open up place. Now they may not be at the same size and scope as the ones that close, but there is that continuation. This industry is growing at a record pace, and I don't want to say there is no ceiling, but there is a point where we're going to have to get used to some of this turmoil. But all of that moving forward, there's a lot of games currently out there for us to play. I think someone on Blue Sky had a stat. A good member of the community, I think it's Knoble, was saying like there was like 18,000 games released on Steam last year. And
Wow.
I would say about probably 60% of those wound up on console to some extent, on either PlayStation, Nintendo, or Xbox. So there's tons of games, and it stands to be even bigger for 2025. So we have that outlook to look forward to. The industry is still growing. It's still flourishing. We still have a lot on our plate and probably backlogs to boot. But for me, the highlights have been some of the older games that still get support. Like, I think one of the things that people tend to ignore with Xbox is how, at times when they released the game, maybe it wasn't to everybody's liking, or it wasn't, complete as far as what they wanted, but they do stick to it. Even if there's some sacrifices made as far as whether it's later closures, but they are always supporting their games, and whether it's expansions or seasons or content updates, like DLC for like Forza Horizon 5. That's a game that came out in 2021, and they're still going strong every month. There's new like 4 weekly, activity season things to go through. New cars still being added to that. State of Decay 2, State of Decay 2 just wrapped up like about a month or so ago. It's 38th or 39th update since its launch, and I think that was like 2019. So, or maybe it was 2018, but that game has seen a complete change. And that was like my big game of the year. Not necessarily my game of the year, but a game that a few bugs kind of turned me off from it when it launched. And I figured, well, I'll get back to it, after they do a few patches. And boy, it is a different, well, I wouldn't say it's a different game, but it's definitely a night and day difference from when it launched to today. And they've added tons of content in between. And they've, upgraded some of those that had like the basic edition to like the Juggernaut edition and things along those lines. So they're definitely sticking to their games. And now that team can, be 100% focused on State of Decay 3, which that's another one that's in the future. We know the roadmap. It's not too far around the corner for us. Things like when it comes to Halo, I know that there's a lot of people that were up in arms about the seasons and stuff in the beginning. I don't hear any of those complaints anymore because they've fixed the glitch basically in making sure that there's always content for people. There's always been expansions and things like that for, things like Diablo, which they just recently had their major expansion, but they've been doing updates on that game and listening to the community, which that's another thing Xbox doesn't really get credit for. Now, they may not listen to us wanting to see a Doom Guy versus Master Chief kind of crossover or other parties suggesting that, but they do listen to the customers, the gamers that are telling them, hey, this game doesn't feel balanced, or this game doesn't feel right as far as the playability, or this mechanic is broken, or this loot drop system needs some reworking or something. And they take that under advisement. And a lot of times we see them in the favor of the gamer, making it where it is more enjoyable. It brings people back to the game that may have put it down from, months ago from whatever issue that they ran into. And now they're releasing games of quality. And I would say they've been releasing games of quality now, but it's not just the gamers noticing. It's now the media that's noticing it as well. When you look at things like Hellblade, when you look at things like Indiana Jones, these aren't games that, needed 52 patches to get, up to date and stuff. Now, I'll admit, even Starfield, when that released, there were a few bugs, none for me that were game breaking. Eventually I ran into some, but I was playing like a madman. So having 5, continuous playthroughs or simultaneous playthroughs, trying everything from being the pirate to being the, space sheriff to just being the bad guy, killing everybody that moves too much or whatever, it's bound to happen. But that's a game that I know a lot of people would say, oh, it's Bethesda, but that was probably their least buggy game that they've ever released in their history until, we'll see how things go in the future. And I think they've gotten to a point where they're in a good rhythm of making sure their games are supported, like Fallout 76, which you had that TV show. Yes, I know we're all waiting for a Fallout 5, but all things considered, with Elder Scrolls in the pocket right now, and that being probably one of the next big titles released outside of their online studio that's been working on something for about 4 or 5 years at least, that hopefully we get to see in June. Every studio within Xbox has been cooking. And the big thing now is we don't know what June holds for us. We have some idea of, some of the things that they've rumored as far as, project names or, well,
Yep.
the studio released their game 5 years ago. So there's got to be something else in the oven right now, like your Double Fines and such. But it's a great space for Xbox right now. I can't say as much for PlayStation. I would say of all the years I've been a PlayStation owner, this is probably the least I've played on PlayStation since I've bought PlayStation since PlayStation 1. Just still playing Gran Turismo, which the only real thing that they did, they released a track or two in a couple of cars throughout the year, but nothing of, I would say, grand significance in comparison, other than they just released a demo or a trial version of that as opposed to putting on PC, which I guess growing pains of them learning how to be a multi-platform entity. They had an awesome game at the beginning of the year with Helldivers. Had a lot of fun with a lot of people in the community playing that. And then they kind of spoiled the waters when it came time to do the PSN ID, which I think that's another low point. But for me personally as a gamer, it's like PlayStation had the example in Xbox on how you convince people. Although I don't foresee PlayStation creating its own operating system. Windows being on probably 80% of PCs out there is probably a big help as far as making it easy for people to link their Xbox account to their Windows account or anything along those lines. I mean, it's kind of intertwined at that point. But as far as when it comes to PlayStation learning these, they still feel like they're a couple of years behind the power curve as far as getting it figured out. And then, from my standpoint, I hope they do get it figured out soon, because I would love to have that cross save and cross progression ability in some of those games. Like, I will buy Ghost of Tsushima if I know the progression was carried over. I would buy, I'll probably wind up buying a Gran Turismo for PC if they ever choose to release it, just for the fact that from a modding standpoint, which unfortunately Forza doesn't, they frown upon mods, which is understandable. It's primarily an online competitive game. But there are those that want to have like an offline mode where maybe we want to have our own custom races where we can pick the paint schemes of the cars and what track and the weather conditions to a T kind of thing to recreate some actual races that were, in history and so forth. But, PlayStation right now is not where I would expect them to be at this point in the generation. 65 million consoles out there. They're now still fighting themselves with this games as a service type of deal. I really hope they figure it out before Fair Games is released. We'll see if it's another Concord. I hope that doesn't happen to them any more times, just for the fact that I don't want to see them bleeding money on something that they still have to press forward and make their splash in. As far as games as a service, that's going to be their recurring income that they can kind of rely on from microtransactions or seasons and stuff like that people make purchases of. But I'm not the biggest Nintendo fan, just because I was a Sega kid growing up, so been kind of ignoring them. But the potential with this upcoming Switch 2 is huge, and I think just portable gaming in general. We've seen the rise of the handhelds, and it's now got even Xbox looking at finally making a portable device, which with their experience with software and operating systems, I'm looking forward to this device. Hopefully they announce it sometime soon this year. Not to take away from Switch 2, because it's not going to matter in that regard. The Switch 2 is going to be its own monster in itself. But I'm hoping, in the way Xbox has been moving, blurring the lines between console and PC. I think that's the biggest thing I look forward to, and seeing this progression as far as the play anywhere mantra that they've started. What was that, like 5 or 6 years ago, when people were like, oh, why would they put games on PC at the same time? Having it where you have that fluid ability to be able to go from your laptop to your console to your phone and vice versa, in any of those orders, and pick up where you left off in the game is a huge win, I think, for the gamers in general. Things like quick resume, also a huge win for gamers. Yes, I know it's a bit of a older feature, but I still enjoy the fact that quick resume, I can have my Forza Horizon game in the background. Yes, it doesn't always work the greatest when there's updates and transitions and seasons or weekly things, but if you're like playing a bit of Forza and then you hop over to State of Decay and then a half hour later back to Forza, you're not skipping a beat. And that's the biggest thing. It's like, oh, I don't really have the free time. While it's loading or while the game is closing and then this one opening, maybe I can go get a drink. No, it's like when I'm set to do gaming time, it's like have all snacks and drinks readily available until it's like, all right, I've been gaming too much. I need to take a break. But just in general, my outlook on 2024 has been that of enjoyment and excitement for what's ahead, but just enjoying everything from playing Dragon's Dogma 2, State of Decay 2. Like, it was a lot of sequels for me this year. Hellblade 2. I think this has been probably my favorite year in gaming, outside of the rose-colored glasses of when you're a kid and you get that first console. This has like been a close second. It's brought me back to enjoying this hobby in a more relaxed way. You may have noticed I've taken a little bit of a step away from social media as far as the console war posts, just because it's like I rather play games than talk to a brick wall. Like it seems like a lot of people are set in their ways and that, Xbox bad, PlayStation good. And it's like, you see other people make YouTube videos on how like they were foolish for believing that all these years, and they get the console, whether it's a gift or something they went out and purchased just as a secondary deal, and they realize, hey, there's a lot to this ecosystem, there's a lot to this device, there's a lot to these games, and they're enjoying themselves. And I've been that way ever since, like, what was that, 2014, going from a PlayStation only fan to being a multi-console person, where I really didn't bother with that. It was like, I got my PC and I got my PlayStation. That's all I really need. 2014 was different for me, and Xbox has helped that grow even further ever since that time. So I just say, for all of those out there, work on your backlog, because 2025, we're not ready for it in general, as far as what to expect from just Xbox alone, let alone third parties out there. And I would say enjoy this hobby. Not that it's like a thing while it lasts, but I think this will help things grow. The more you enjoy it, the more you'll spread that joy, telling other people like, man, you have to check this game out, or man, you need to check out Game Pass, because this is like when we were renting stuff at Blockbuster, this is 10 times better, because you don't have to leave your house to do that type of thing. I think we're in for a treat, moving forward. And I hope this industry stabilizes on the employee front, but the flow of these games, I don't foresee this slowing down anytime soon. And that's awesome to me.
Great stuff. Great 45 minutes to open up the show. Lots of big opinions. And again, it's a great way to close out 2024, continue our march into 2025, as today is the 3rd. And we're going to get into the second half momentarily. Just going to catch up on super chats here. Torino Johnson drops a very generous $5 super chat, and he goes on to say, just some support, Boom. Happy New Year. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the support, and thank you for the well wishes. Happy New Year to you and yours, Torino. And of course, thank you so much for being here. Giggity08 drops a very generous $5 super chat. And he says, I'd be okay with letting Halo sit if they were giving us a Halo Infinite story DLC, but as for now, they won't. Yeah, I mean, again, if there's one thing that is what as a Halo fan that I'm most disappointed in, is the fact that they have allowed this magnanimous brand to become a meme. Now, granted, look, multiplayer Halo is phenomenal. And if it wasn't, I wouldn't have nearly 23 days in multiplayer, which is ridiculous if you think about it. Um, I've missed the last 3 operations. I'm ashamed of myself, but Call of Duty has stolen my soul, and I'm going to try and get back into playing Halo because Halo multiplayer is phenomenal. It's probably the best multiplayer that I've personally played since 3. 3 was always my favorite. Infinite has leaps and bounds jumped over that. But yeah, the single player story arc that we could have learned about with what happened to Team Osiris, what happened to Locke, what happens after the end of Infinite. We're just never going to get that. So what we can hope for is that the big changes that came to 343 or now Halo Studios with their new leadership in place, they'll figure it out because again, it's pretty awful when you think about it how low Halo has become when it is a mainline franchise. Halo Master Chief is Xbox. Yes, they've had a couple of TV series. The first one, it was good. Second one was much better. Second season, much better. We know there's not going to be a season 3. They're moving it on to someone else. Hopefully they figure it out and they get it right. But it should have never. And again, who do you blame for this? Do you blame Phil Spencer? Do you blame Matt Booty? Do you blame Sarah Bond? Do you blame 343? I'm not sure. I mean, obviously it starts with 343. They were running the show. It was a cluster F over there with leadership and the way that they did things. Again, all we can hope for is we see the turning of the tides with Xbox as a first party publisher, and they're doing the job. I think that we're going to see that happen with Halo. I think that you're going to see that happen when Gears E-Day releases. The coalition's been cooking with that for a while. They're going back to their roots. It's no longer Gears; it's Gears of War E-Day. So they fixed a lot of what was wrong with that franchise. We can only hope, and I believe it's going to happen, that the next time we see Halo, it is going to be everything we've always asked for, wanted, and remember. And that's super important. Giggity, thanks for the generosity, brother. It's great to see you here. Gamers Play HUD Zero. My brother, thank you so much for the very generous $5 super chat. He goes on to say, hey, Boom, the proof is in the pudding. Now that people on both the blue and green side tasted it, this means the strategy has worked. Hashtag X marks the spot. And of course, not to be outdone, he has become a channel member once again. So Gamers Play HUD Zero, thank you for the generosity as always. And the comment is absolutely right. I think that again, this is where we're going to get into the second half of the show. This is where, Crispy, I'm going right back to you because, you and I talk about this on a regular basis, and maybe because we're old men, and it's fine. You're certainly younger than me. You're not as old, and you're not in the old man category as me, but you understand business. You work for a living like everybody else. We understand that value proposition, regardless of where it comes from, is incredibly important. It has been important for years, but I think that when you look back to any year past the original pandemic in 2020, things have become some things have become unattainable. And I'm not just talking about, lavish vacations or new vehicles or new wardrobes or even new homes, which is Mrs. Boom and I are currently saving for. And unfortunately, it's going to be a while because the market is just ridiculous. We can't jump in now. It's too late. It's out of control. But that's okay because we're just going to keep putting the money away and saving, and we're going to do it the right way. We're going to, put our heads down, work hard, and get it done. And that's where Xbox Game Pass in 2025 conversation comes into play, Crispy Bob, because I think that we are currently at a crossroad or even a trajectory where if you are a PlayStation gamer, whether you're diehard PlayStation, whether you're a casual, it doesn't matter. If you're a Nintendo person, you got a new console coming out. The Switch 2 is going to come out. It's going to blow the doors off of the Switch 1. We're hearing that there's going to have now. It's not going to be as powerful as the PlayStation 5. I see some commentary out there, folks. It's not. The rumor is that it's going to be, while it's in handheld mode, be as powerful as the PlayStation 4 Pro. While it's docked, this is a rumor, it's going to be as powerful as the Series S. We'll see. We'll see. But needless to say, there's a new Nintendo coming out. And with all of that said, we gotta turn our gaze over to Xbox Game Pass. And that's a laser focused gaze, because yes, I get it. When it launched in 2017, it was a new service. You know, we didn't have the Paramounts or the Peacocks or the Hulus. We had some of them, but streaming services were coming into their own, and that has a lot to do with, well, Netflix as being one of the originators. And you've heard the term, Crispy, that Xbox wants to become the Netflix of gaming. I think they're already here. But when you look at 2025's lineup, and I have pulled up a pretty unbelievable list of games. Now, look, a lot of these we already know are coming. The Avoweds, the Dooms, the Fables. But there are a lot of stuff here that, and mind you, this is just a fraction of what is expected to be 100+ games, new games, day and date games into the service. You have Eternal Strains, Sniper Elite, Citizen Sleeper 2, Atomfall, Football Manager 2025, Dead Static Drive, which was on PlayStation. Now that's coming to Xbox. Expedition 33. Freaking cannot wait for that game. You have, what is this over here? Commandos Origins, Descenders Next. You have Mixtape. You have Replaced, 33 Immortals, Wu Chang, Wheel World, Outer Worlds 2, The Altar, Subnautica 2, Sleight of Hand. There's Fragpunk that looks really good. And again, I'm not a hero shooter guy, but I will definitely give it a shot. Lost in Random is another one. It's a stacked deck. So where I want to take this conversation, folks, is let's just put down your console war torches and pitchforks for a second. Whether you're a PlayStation guy, gal, a Nintendo guy, gal, or diehard Xbox fan, I think, Crispy, it's hard to argue, it's hard to deny that as we continue to move through a new transition of power with people in government, especially here in the States, we don't know how long the value of the dollar is going to last. We don't know whether it's going to increase or it's going to continue to lessen. The more things happen in the world, the more expensive things are going to get, right? Eggs, and I make fun of me all you want, but this is a reality, folks. Eggs at Stop and Shop for a dozen eggs are $5.49. That is effing ridiculous. And I'm sorry, you can make fun of me all you want about, bringing real life stuff into the conversation, but that is a reality. It's a sad reality that our monies that we're getting, especially retired community like me and Fuzzy, that dollar is just not the same. The dollar is worth about 78 cents now versus a couple of years ago, you were getting the full dollar, sometimes more than that. And this is where Xbox Game Pass comes into the conversation, because we know, ladies and gentlemen, that Xbox or Microsoft as a company invests $1 billion per year into bringing games into Xbox Game Pass. And obviously, we haven't had the latest update with numbers. Is it 35 million subscribers? Is it 40+ million because of Call of Duty? We know they didn't sell a lot of consoles because of Call of Duty, but we know that they increased in subscription services. We just don't know the exact amount. And I really do think when you look at next year, when you look at 2025's lineup, which is this year, I got to get used to saying that. Crispy, I don't know how much longer even someone that games specifically and purposefully on PlayStation or Nintendo only can continue to deny not only the value, but it's the quality. Because if you sign up for Xbox Game Pass today, you have access not only to their unbelievable, ridiculous library that they've had in the past, and that goes all the way back to OG Xbox games, but you can download Indiana Jones. You can download Hellblade 2. You can download Stalker 2. And now next month, you got Avowed, right? There's a rumor in April that South of Midnight is coming up. You got Doom. I mean, the unbelievable experiences and quality you're going to get by jumping into this service, I don't think you can deny anymore. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, so looking at 2025, because we're in it right now, I want Xbox to release a game every month. Now, It might not be first party, but every month I want some kind of game that is impactful within the service that is Game Pass. Now, I've said this 100 times, okay? And I've said this way back like 5 years ago. Game Pass will be the exclusive. And this is where you go and say, well, Netflix is the exclusive for a lot of things. I mean, you want to go watch a documentary? Go search it. You'll find something that you'll be like, wow, this is actually weird. You want to go watch, a big budget movie or a big budget TV show? They got it too. Okay. You want action adventure, you want comedy. Oh, they got that too. Xbox is just trying to do that just in gaming. I mean, look at what they're bringing out next year. And now there's questions on certain things. We understand that. But I mean, to have like a game like South of Midnight, stop motion. Okay. People were hating on it. People were like, well, wow, this is not the stop motion I remember when I was a kid. Some of us, looked at that and they were like, okay, this actually looks really good. You know what I mean? And that's where I go and say, like, everybody's saying Avowed's going to come out first. What if they shadow dropped South of Midnight? Because they've been showing a lot of stuff.
Indeed, they have,
South of Midnight. Okay. And that's Compulsion. And Compulsion has went through the proper channels to say, hey, Microsoft, is this okay? So, that's what happens when you have a large company. Like, they probably sent the email, and then if they get mad when they send them, like, hey, like, let's just do this, I don't think, at least if it goes to Phil's going to be like, go for it. You ready? Yeah, we're ready. Go for it. All right, let's do this. So I'm just saying, like, you need, like, let's say Avowed came out in February instead of January. Would anybody really be mad if South of Midnight came in January? These are the options that we have right now. Like, they completely are leaving the FOMO out there because they continue to show us stuff. You understand what I'm saying? Like, they're doing things that no other gaming like PlayStation's not doing this. They're going to give you a release date, and then they're probably going to push it back another couple months. But they're not showing multiple things all the time. They do that with certain games, but it's very few and far between. Xbox has continued to do this. They have continued to say, hey, let's throw a little smidge out there and see how people react. Let's test the water. Put our toe in the water. Oh, it's cold. Oh, okay. We're gonna step back. We're gonna stand on the, on the deck or whatever it is. All right. Let's just, get ourselves together. Let's, like, relax. We're trying to put this out now. But lately it's been a lot of like, hey, I can't wait. Hey, this is going to be great. Sure, there's the PS is better and all this stuff. I don't care. And like I've said before, I don't see a lot of the games that are going to come out this year that make people feel like they're going to go to PlayStation anytime soon. Could they? Sure. You want to wait on that? That's on you. That's not on me. Okay. I get to download it in Game Pass. Okay. Like they already told you, hey, Doom Dark Ages is coming to PlayStation. Well, that's great. I mean, all the other Dooms have been on PlayStation. You know,
Yeah.
What are we talking about here? Like, I'm not sitting here like, oh, you should only keep this on Xbox. Like, no, like that would actually be disrespectful to the people that have just loved Doom. You know what I mean? Like, you have a fandom in a game. You have a fandom in a game. So, like, you know, when Shadows or myself go and say, like, hey, like, I will absolutely love if they make the Phoenix Collection and they put it on PlayStation, because I want people to experience that. I would actually help them as long as they're respectful and a nice person. Okay. Like if you can't figure it out, I'll help you figure it out. But that's a problem that some people have, because I'm a fan of a game that got me into Xbox to begin with. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
And that game has been, 6 years, bro. Like, come on, it's time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care what it is. Give me something. But that's also a FOMO aspect. You actually look at that and say, I want it now. You know what I mean? Like, and that's where you go and say, like, everybody wants everything now. We're in a age where you can have a phone and be like, oh, that game looks cool. I saw this on a TikTok or a YouTube or whatever. And then you go and say, but I can't play it on my phone because that's all I have. Well, Xbox is giving you that in some way, shape, or form. Like, yeah, it might not be the game you want, but it might be something similar. If anything, it could be the game you want over time. That's where Xbox is doing things differently. And people are going to hate it. They are going to hate it. I mean, am I all for like every game going to PlayStation? No. But at the same time, I want these games to survive within their own ecosystem. And if it requires PlayStation for them to continue to invest in, I'm okay with that. And I think that's something that people need to realize, because I don't see Xbox changing their narrative anytime soon of what's going to be on Xbox and what's not going to be. And I think we need to accept that in a way. But that goes and say, what is Game Pass to you? Now, the people in the chat, most of them probably like, Game Pass is everything right now, especially for gaming. So why deny that? And then to come to this year and the list that you just threw off, and that's not even all the possibilities as well. I mean, we still have Contraband sitting there somewhere.
Yep.
We have games that, like maybe like, one game like Concord came out and it didn't do well. So then now they're like, okay, let's rethink the Contraband thing, and maybe they're redeveloping. Well, guess what? We have that option because we have so many other games.
That's right, brother. That's exactly correct.
We have so many other games. You know what? Hey, Contraband, you can't do that right now. Okay, we got somebody else to take your spot. We're good with that. They need to be agnostic. And that's the thing. I love that they're not putting complete dates out there. I really am. I know people are hating it. Like, oh, why didn't this get a date or that get a date? You have to let them cook. You have to. Because what I saw from E-Day, being a Gears fan, I said, thank God I said let them cook. You know what I mean? And I said I was not completely against it, but I was not. The amount of time between games we're not used to. We're used to 3 years for a lot of sequels and everything else. That does not mean that that's the right thing to do in this day and age. And I think Microsoft is absolutely on the pulse. They have analytic data, people. Like they have a lot of analytic data that says, okay, like we're going to put out a Southern style game like South of Midnight that is going to be something that's like for a select few people in a way, but it doesn't mean that people aren't going to get interested or engaged in it. And I think that's the problem with these other companies. Like Nintendo, what are they going to put out? Are they going to put out reiterations of Mario? Are they going to put reiterations of this and that? We're talking like 10 plus games on some of these IP.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're under 10 on a lot of the IP that are on Xbox. You know, we're at least under 10. But that's where I say, like, you can't ignore what you've done before. You can make it better. And that's what I say, like, you know, like everybody's looking Oblivion remake. Oh, everybody's like, you know, like, please let it happen. But that's the same thing I feel about the Phoenix Collection. Like, but if it goes, you know, to every platform, do you really care if you are a fan of that series or, you know, just that one game that's much older? And then I say, okay, PlayStation, like you have like IP like Twisted Metal, you have IP like SOCOM, you have IP like Killzone, okay, which haven't been touched in it's damn close to 10 years.
Yeah, a decade
okay?
at least. Yep.
So why don't you touch that again and maybe like you could possibly revamp it, or games as a service? Okay, like SOCOM was like one of the OG multiplayers I've ever played in my life, like online, everything else. Like what happened? Like you just gave up? You said no?
Well, they went to where they followed. They took the easy route. There's no doubt about it. And I'm not saying that making games is easy, because I couldn't tell you anything about making games. But Crispy, you make a great point. I think that PlayStation lost their way. Now there was a recent interview with Herman Holtz where they're going to go back and they're going to bring forward a lot of their older IPs, because they absolutely have to, for a lot of reasons. I don't think they can continue to take on $400 million budget games. So you might see a Sly Cooper come back. You might see a Jack and Daxter come back, and they can make those games. And I have no doubt that they're going to be good. But they have to return to where where they were weird. That's where they lost their way, because everything in the last 5 years all looks the same. Spider-Man looks like The Last of Us. Last of Us looks like Horizon. Horizon looks like God of War. God of War looks like Days Gone. And I like those games. That's why I have a PlayStation. I like those types of games, but they got to get weird. They got to go back to where their roots. Great point, man.
Well, I mean, you got to be honest with yourself. Like, I get my checks and balances upstairs from the young man. Okay, like he's like, you know what's his most anticipated game right now? Subnautica 2. Why?
And this Game Pass too. Look at that.
Why? In my head, I have no idea. Like, I've watched him play the game. Okay, like I'm just sitting there like, okay, this is boring. But he is like in every little aspect. Oh, I got to get this. Oh, I got to get that. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, why be judgmental? Because I've done that with Fallout. Why be judgmental? And that's where I go and say, okay, like, but what's your intrigue? Well, I could play it on PC, and if I bring my Xbox, I can play it here, and I still have the same save, and I can play with the people. Well, I don't know. I don't hear anybody on PlayStation side saying stuff like that. Like, hey, I play on the PC, and then I go and bring it here, and then I can also talk to people and everything else. Oh, you could say through Discord. Okay, but no. I can go through Xbox Live, or I can go through Discord. These are options, people. Like, Xbox is just going to give you options until no end. They're going to give you options on what style of game. They're going to give you options on how you play it or where you play it at. Do you want to buy it? Do you not want to buy it? This is all good. For the leader, or at least I say the revenue stream that is Microsoft/Xbox.
Yep.
For them to give you those options is actually good as a consumer. It's not sitting there saying, hey, like, you're not going to get any games on PlayStation if you want to play there. Actually, I'm still in the belief that they would put Game Pass on there if PlayStation allowed it for a second. they'd wait 1 second and be like, no, yes, please, let's do this. and if the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out and it maybe they're the ones. Maybe they announce Game Pass will launch on there. It's a software-based company. They are capable of doing it. And that's where I get mad. That's where I get mad. And it's going a little off topic, but the Black Myth Wukong thing, okay? It's built in the Unreal Engine. All right. You have games like Hellblade 2, which I've seen people have went to the highest settings and crippled their PC. Do you understand that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know, like Indiana Jones, different engine, but they haven't crippled, which I'm impressed with that. I haven't seen any PC guys be like, oh, I've crippled it. I've put it at all the highest settings and it runs great. You know what I mean? And that's where I say, like, okay, Indiana Jones is going to come to PlayStation. Look forward to that. But remember, we got games that are not coming to you that are going to be even better. And that's where I say, like, you know, that's where Doom the Dark Ages I look at and I say they're going to understand at some point, because clearly they still like id Tech. You know, we have many engines that have went through, you know, especially like Slipspace, stuff like Slipspace gone now. Okay. They spent how many millions of dollars on that? They're done with it. They're going to Unreal. So clearly Epic knows what they're doing when they build an engine. And that's where you're going to start seeing games go one way or the other. But you're also going to see games on Xbox that are like, okay, we're going to go to like 2D style, simplistic aspect, and you're going to enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, and boom, I mean, you're one for that. So,
yeah.
You know,
well,
like,
no, again,
you
this is exactly what we're talking about. Crispy, is the Game Pass allows you to do that. It allows you to put quality. As a matter of fact, OG Frost had just added a $5 super chat, and he said basically with Netflix, there's plenty of TV shows / movies. Not all of them are for everybody, but there's something for everyone. It's the same with Game Pass, and it's exactly like perfect timing for the super chat, along with your point.
Salute to that.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Listen, again, it's you're onto something, and I do want to continue the PlayStation service scenario versus Xbox Game Pass conversation that you just led with to Fuzzy. Fuzzy, look, if we're comparing apples to oranges here, you look at what PlayStation has done with their service.
Mm-hmm.
And some games that they put in there, you know, a lot of the stuff is older stuff. Some of the stuff is really good. Some of the stuff, like what they put in, you know, more specifically for January, is not that good, to be honest with you. They almost seem like they didn't even bother trying. Like, this is, you know, yeah, it's just, you know, sloppy seconds, go. And their service, yes, now it's a bit cheaper than Xbox. But when you look at value proposition, let's say, for instance, ladies and gentlemen, you don't go look for a deal. Like, I just found a deal. I got 3 months of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for $29.29 at CD Keys. So you say, what? Why? Well, because I'm about to, have that 3-month gap. So every time I got a 3-month gap, I drop a 3-month card, and I just keep extending the service. And I pay $29.29 for it at CD Keys. Now, if you're not a frugal person, you're like, I don't understand this CD Keys thing. Boom, I'm just going to pay my $20. You're not wrong. So you pay your $20 for the entire year of 2025, and you spend $240. The games that are coming out that from first party alone will double that if you spent the money. If you actually spent the $76.43 per game, you will have doubled, maybe even tripled that, right? That's not including all of the second party, third party, and indie partner deals. Plus, there could be some exclusive content in there from Xbox Game Studios that has not been discussed yet, right? We did hear that Matt Booty said we have a couple of things coming out in 2025 that we have not talked about yet. What are those? Is it Towerborn? Right? They talked about that. Is it 33 Immortals? They talked about that. What else could it be? I don't know, but they could be something. And when you talk about value proposition, I really believe if you are a Sony guy or gal, yes, you enjoy your PlayStation, right? You're enjoying that Ghost of Yotai is going to be on your console. Awesome. You're getting first crack at Kojima's new game, Death Stranding: The Beach. Awesome, right? That's great. You're going to get a chance to play it first. But interestingly enough, and I think this is where you have to, and I'm using PlayStation against themselves, ladies and gentlemen. You're a PlayStation gamer. You're spending a significant amount of money. Let's say you got the biggest PlayStation Plus service that they have. Right, it's $160 a year. You're still not getting MLB The Show 25 in your service. But if you go to Game Pass, you get the best version of that in the service. Like, think about that for a second, folks. That's just another caveat that every year since they started, they were forced to put it on other platforms. Xbox Game Pass has had MLB The Show day and date. Sony players have to spend full freaking boat to play that game on a service that you were paying $160. So even at the best possible service scenario, they're still not giving you that game. That to me is one of the reasons why I would go over to Xbox Game Pass. But now, Fuzzy Belvedere, you include all of these games, this roadmap that has been painted for us, and there are a couple of variables in there, right? The Gears of War E-Day, it's unlikely, right? But it's rumored. Oblivion remake using Unreal Engine 5. Umbra, if you're here, I know he's getting excited. That's definitely a possibility. That is probably going to go to all platforms, and it makes sense. It was on all platforms. But if you want to play that, and I'm sure a lot of PlayStation players will, you'll have to spend the full boat to get that. This is where I go right back to Xbox Game Pass has now become an undeniable fiscal situation for a lot of people. If you are a diehard gamer, if you love gaming, how can you not have this service? I don't care where your allegiance lie. I don't care if I cut you on your wrist, you're bleeding blue, or if I cut you on your head, you're bleeding red, literally because it's blood, but you're a Nintendo person. How can you as a gamer not look over at Xbox Game Pass and be like, God damn, bro, that's something. It has become undeniable. And I think that there is no excuse, there is no scenario, there is no console war rhetoric that you could use that will deny Xbox being the place to game in 2025, especially if you are an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscriber. Let's get your thoughts.
Well, I look at it as my overall budget used to be about $1,800 a year on gaming as a whole. And that's with having two kids, sometimes having to buy multiple copies only because, you can only game share across one. So when Game Pass became more of a go-to for me, especially once they started playing on PC as well, it just made sense to do that. Have it where they can still do the game share, but if they're playing more so on their PC, you have to jump through a lot of hoops to really do the game share beyond just one other PC, unless you're basically the admin on all PCs, and then you have to be logged in on all PCs, but some games make you log out, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot more work trying to save a buck in that regard. But overall, because of how Game Pass is structured, that affords me the opportunity to buy more games on my PC, more games that don't wind up in the service, or spend it elsewhere outside of gaming. More so, it's been hardware purchases than anything, whether it's controllers or Steam Deck or things along those lines. But in the grand scheme of things, because of Game Pass, it's allowed me to get more for my dollar. And I'm one of those that, because I have a lot of free time, I wind up using a lot of Microsoft reward points. Like, to me, that's the biggest thing in comparison to like PlayStation. The thing I used to hate is, even when you have like the Sony credit card, it takes a lot more purchases to get enough points to get a free game. Like, basically, if you bought, I think it's like 6 or 7 games at one point, I think that's roughly what it was for Xbox. Once you buy that, like 6 games, it's like the 7th one is free or something to that effect. And it's still pretty close to that as far as points. And sometimes you get double rewards points on certain purchases or certain games. They don't do it as frequently as they used to, but that's the thing where it's like, all right, yeah, I know Google search is much better than Bing search, but guess what? I'm not having to rely on these searches as much to be, as in depth. Pretty much they point to a lot of the same websites when you use them. Playing games, like Microsoft actually rewards you for playing games more than what Sony does. Like, even with their Stars program, you can get all the trophies you want. You're getting a trinket for a shelf kind of thing. Like, they have that game shelf thing. Yeah, you get rewards for your, I guess, wall that you can look at on your phone. That's not doing me any good. It's almost like you have to buy 15 games and beat all 15 to get like $5 back. I think that's roughly what it winds up being, as opposed
ridiculous,
to
dude. Ridiculous.
Yeah, but you could play, like, if you have Game Pass, you could play, was it like something like 12 or 15 games, and you would get enough points that's worth like a $5 card at that point. I think the value in general is undeniable, but it's more so about the games. And yeah, I know in the early days of Game Pass, I think it was back in 2017 when we all probably signed up, it wasn't the greatest, but it was a lot of like first party, Xbox One and 360 games that were back and pat. And you had some of the launch lineup as far as Xbox first party studios and some of their partnered games that they did at launch. And then it grew. And then, the first breakout, I think, outside of their first party was really when Outriders came there. Now, given that they had some buggy issues at points, it was still a great game to have day one in that service. And they've been doing that ever since. It may not be as grandiose as it appeared when Outriders appeared, but I think people have kind of come to expect at least 1 or 2 third party a year making a debut in the service. And Capcom has delivered a couple of times. Sure, they weren't their Resident Evil games, but they were games that, maybe people wouldn't have even bothered purchasing, like Path of the Goddess. I know a lot of people say it's a lovely playing game, looks great, but honestly, a lot of people are probably like, I'll wait for a sale, or I'll wait to do this, and then find out it's an awesome game, and then wind up picking it up at a discount, which I hate the argument of, I like to own my games. And okay, great. You can still do that with the service. And the key thing behind it is you actually get a discount. Like, within the first 30 days, I think it was a 15% discount. And after 30 days, it winds up being like a 25 or greater at the point. So I still own my games. As much as you digitally own them, which I think us as gamers really need to push that issue to own our actual digital games so we can trade them or sell them or whatever. But that's a uphill battle that we can, choose to fight or not. But in the grand scheme of things, I think Game Pass gives you the options to try out a game day one, see if you like it. And if it's one of those games that's not first party and it's going to leave the service, that gives you a perfect opportunity to take the discount either then or wait until just before it leaves when it's even deeper discount. That's what I do a lot of times. And I think they've come to understand that. Like, they'll let you know, hey, this game is leaving. Don't you want to buy it? Hey, we took an extra 15% off of it.
Yep.
Doesn't that tempt you? And it's like, at that point, okay, it's $17 for a game that's been in the service for 6 months or so. Yeah, I'll do that. Or a game that was in the service for a year. Oh, it's $7 now. It's like you don't even have to think about it. It's like, yeah, I'll add that. Yeah, I'll add that, because you don't know when it's coming back to the service, and you want to be able to say, you know what, I'm in the mood for playing Control. But if you didn't purchase it initially, now would be the time when it leaves the service, or when it's about to come back to the service. You get that discount after it's been out of the service for a bit of time. it's just, for me, it's like what we used to enjoy with Blockbuster with renting games. I wasn't as much of a GameFly fan because it was like, oh, it felt like a couple of days, because me being on the East Coast, I think at the time when they launched, they only had their West Coast shipping point. So it was like at least 2 days at the best. And then a lot of times by the time you would reserve it, it seemed like all the people on the West Coast reserved that game and they didn't have enough of that copy at launch, kind of thing. But this is such a more easier service to get along with. And the fact that they're expanding your access to being able to play it on your phone, or being able to play it on your tablet or a handheld device or your TV that has the app built in, I can't think of why you wouldn't want to at least give it a try. Like, if you're really into gaming, I would say, yeah, keep your PlayStation. For me, my PlayStation is my first party go-to for their first party exclusives. But as far as the third party stuff, it's either purchase on Xbox or it's purchase in Steam if it's not available on console at this point. Or if it's not available on Xbox, it winds up being purchased on Steam. Like Black Myth will probably be purchased. I haven't purchased it yet because I'm waiting for it to drop in price, which I missed the time when it dropped below the $30 mark. But it's Game Pass is the go-to for me in the matter of saving money, having access to games day one, and I can't stress this enough. Like, you don't have to worry. Well, like, we've all experienced FOMO where you see your friends list is all playing this game that you may have said you were going to wait on, or if you weren't sure on, you're going to wait to hear their feedback, and you hear, oh, it's amazing. Like, your Hogwarts Legacy. Now, that's not in Game Pass or anything, but there are games that reach that same level. And it's like, you know what? I can try it the same day everybody else tries it, not have to pay for it that day. And then if it winds up not being a first party and it leaves the service, I can save money. And I've played the game and got the discount price that I could have waited like 6 months to a year to get, or for the holidays to get, but I'm playing it now. And I that's the thing that really strikes it home for me. Like, I'm so glad that they've expanded this program, or this service like they have, to the point where I can't imagine not having it. Like, I really wish PlayStation would do something along these lines. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's not sustainable. But yeah, it's been around since 2017. And the same people say Xbox has been dead. So I guess Xbox and Game Pass is a zombie at this point, which I'm fine with zombies. Some zombie movies are some of my favorite. But it's just laughable to me at this point that people try to deny the value proposition, or just the enjoyment that you can have for a little bit of money, or maybe some spare time taken up in searches, or just playing games to get your rewards points to cash in for a month of Game Pass or 3 months of Ultimate, or much like I do the 3-month Ultimate things where I'm good until 28 at this point. So I can't stress that enough. But this year is going to be crazy from first party. So if you're just looking at first party, the 6 games that we know of, I would say it's well worth buying that subscription if you haven't already, bought the cards on discount from CD Keys, or what Target usually does on occasions, where it's like less than, I think, $8 or like $9 plus tax a month for like their cards for the 3-month card bundles and things like that. But it's an awesome service. Saved me a ton of money and allowed me to access more games, buy certain pieces of hardware that I would probably have to wait until a deep discount. And it's just awesome to enjoy.
Great points from everybody. In closing, we'll get to the super chats, but just for me personally, the more that you see PlayStation gamers, you know who we're talking about, the ones that are toxic. We're not talking about the ones that are trying to actually interact with the community and make friends. We're talking about the people that use hate rhetoric and disgusting content to further their narratives. Instead of criticizing Xbox for giving its players so much for the amount of money, why don't you ask why PlayStation isn't doing it? Why isn't PlayStation putting MLB The Show into my subscription that I pay $159.99 plus tax a year? How come I'm not getting that, but Xbox Game Pass is getting it? I understand it's a deal, and yes, that version of it is being published by MLB, that should have nothing to do with it. You, as a PlayStation gamer, should be like, what? Why am I not getting the same value? Suicide Squad is the game that's what their big game for January. Now, I very much enjoyed that game, but that game is $5 now. It's $5 because they're going to shut the servers off if they haven't already shut them off. So is that a game that you should be getting in your $160 a month service? I don't know, man. I don't know. But at the end of the day, this was a phenomenal conversation that we had. Great opinions from everybody. The chat was on fire as per the norm with your commentary. Lots of really great back and forth. No trolls, which is always great. Let me get these last couple of super chats and we will get everyone out here so you can start your weekend. Will Broke Boy Lewis, generous friend of the program, drops an outstanding $2 super chat. Will goes on to say, did you see Eurogamer named Indiana Jones their game of the year? We actually, we made mention of that. It's quite shocking. And I think that, again, Crispy made mention of it. Indiana Jones might just actually be the turning point for the gaming media coming around, to be fair. I'm not overly positive with Xbox because they're going to release games that don't score well. That's how it is. But the games that they have coming out this year, I think everything is going to score good. And we've seen most of them, and they look phenomenal. And I think that is and may be the turning point with the media. Thanks so much for being here, Will, and thank you for the generosity. And Be Nice in the chat drops a very generous $5 super chat. And Be Nice goes on to say, Xbox has 2 years or so left on this gen with a jump on next gen. They need to flood the S out of Game Pass and make a statement, set the tone for next gen. I think they're going to do that, dude. And I think that if they continue, like 2025 is expected, we already know that what's coming. 2026 is the real, excitement, right? Because what is happening in 2026? Well, we know, and we've heard the rumor is that they're going to be launching their first open-ended console, open source console. It's going to be a box under the TV that we know and love, but it's going to give you and allow you to do things like a PC. That's crazy. You might also get a handheld release at the same time. So not only are they going to go next gen, not only are they going to give you an open sourced box under your TV, you're getting the first Xbox handheld ever, right? And on top of that, I don't know, it's the 25th anniversary of the brand. It's the 25th anniversary of Halo. It's the 20th anniversary of Gears of War. I mean, there is something to be... we're excited now in 2025. 2026 is going to be a 24-hour-a-day party for Xbox. And if you just look at what has happened, go back to 2022. It was an abysmal year, right? Letdowns left, right, and center. Everything was delayed. They show up to the Game Awards with a freaking Game Pass ad, and that's it. Now, if you go back and you look at what they've done in 2023, solid. 2024, solid. 2025, redonkulous. 2026 would be the fourth consecutive year, and they're launching new hardwares, 2 pieces of which could be. So again, as an Xbox fan, it's something that now it's time to get excited. And I think that this year is going to be just unbelievable. Be Nice drops an additional, very generous $2 super chat and says, next gen aggressively advertise all access prong. Yeah, I think that's what they're doing that now. The Xbox, and again, you heard Paris, you've heard Jez Corden, you've heard Tom Henderson and Tom Warren say that this is an Xbox is going to make sense soon. You got CES happening. We know that J-Ron is going to be there. We know that you have another hardware event. GDC is happening, right? GDC. There's rumors that there might be an Xbox handheld that shows up. We don't know, but there's a rumor for that. I think you're going to start to see that. Thank you for the additional generosity. And again, speaking of additional generosity, Will Broke Boy Lewis drops an outstanding $2 super chat and says, just got hit with the PC Game Pass ad while you were talking. That's freaking awesome. I mean, again, they know what they're doing, and well, we're gonna win. BT Maverick 707 Maverick, thank you for being here, brother, and of course, thank you for the very generous $10 super chat. It says, good thing to start doing, even if you're not a PC gamer, is to make an account for Epic Games, indeed, on your phone. They're just handing out free games, and next gen will be we will get the hybrid PC Xbox with those games waiting for you. That's great. And he's 1,000% right. Take the free games. I mean, every time there's a free game, I download it. Have I played any of them? Not one. But you know what? BT Maverick is right. When I go to start up my Xbox in 2026 and I go to the Epic's game store, all I'm going to have to do is download. And all of those games are going to be in there for the price of free. So great point all around, BT Maverick. Thank you for the generosity. Leonard Herrera. Leonard, great to see you here. Happy New Year to you and the fam. He has been a channel member for 33 long months. Brother, that is crazy generous of you. Thank you for the support. He says, clutching my pearls for gaming in 2025 and 2026. Happy New Year, everyone. Happy New Year to you as well, brother. And yeah, it is going to be one heck of a next couple of years. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for us here on Breakfast with Boom. Let's get to the outros and we'll get you guys and gals on out of here. Crispy Bomb, let's sell the brand, brother. Where can people follow you on social media, potentially get a crispy rant? And where might you show up next, sir?
At Crispy Bomb on X, Crispy Bomb 28 Xbox Live. You could find me here whenever I show up. So, you know, whatever it may be, Xbox Factor, Primetime Gaming, Breakfast with Boom, my home. You never know. Even Xbox Lunch Break Special. Like, come on, people. Like, I've been on all of them except Xlog, which maybe we have to change that at some point.
Yeah, we have to change that. You have to make the rounds. You have to officially have been on every show.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, like, see, Money Cooked. You know, this past yesterday.
He was cooking. Hard. Yep.
You know, I was actually in agreement with him on that secret level nonsense. But you know, at the end of the day, we talk gaming. Yeah, if you love PlayStation, I don't hate you. I love PlayStation 2 so much. Loved it. Like, bought everything for it. You know, multiple memory cards, the adapter to play like 3v3 and stuff like that. Like, I loved it. I loved Sega before, you know, I got the Saturn and I went and shopped at Blockbuster. That's what I call it, shopping at Blockbuster, for a new game. And, you know, PlayStation just basically had the entire aisle. And there was this little nook that I could get for my Saturn games. So I just say, enjoy what you want, but also look at enjoying what you want and say, Xbox might let me enjoy what I want.
Indeed.
So
yeah.
that's not a bad thing. So thank you all. Happy New Year. God bless.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that very much. And Fuzzy Belvedere, let's sell the brand, brother, but not just your brand, which is, of course, the best place for anything and everything in the racing genre while you subscribe to Fuzzy Belvedere's channel. But we also want people to kind of funnel on over to the Mrs. Of course, Mrs. Fuzzy Belvedere has a horror channel, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday evenings. And of course, it's called Fright Night with Ferocious Fee. Where could people subscribe to both of your YouTube channels, but more importantly, follow you both on social media?
As always, Boom, thank you for having me on. It was awesome being on here this morning. Love having Crispy on here as well. Loving hearing his perspective and takes on things, and just love talk about gaming with you guys. This is what I enjoy doing. This hobby we all, you know, share and enjoy. This was an awesome Friday morning. For those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, you can follow me on any social media platform except for Facebook. Reasons, just do a search for Fuzzy Belvedere, Fuzzy_Belvedere on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and just Fuzzy Belvedere on all others like Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and whatnot, as well as YouTube. And if you're happen to be into horror movies, like we were saying earlier, or even horror video games, definitely check out my wife's podcast, Fright Night with Ferocious Fee, Friday. Well, actually later tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to put the link in the chat. And we're going to be talking about Maxine, which it's like a sequel to another horror movie where some adult themes. It's based on a porn star, or the original one was based on like a porn star studio or whatever. This one's a porn star becoming a regular celebrity or a regular star, and all the tries and tribulations that lead up to it. Pretty interesting. A nice, cat and mouse type of horror game, tense moments and whatnot. I think it's safe for most ages, although the podcast, we're going to be diving into a wide variety of some of the goings on in this one, but it's an awesome flick to check out. Check out the podcast later on tonight, and hang out with us if you've watched the movie, or hear our thoughts on it and see if it's worth checking out. I think you'll enjoy either way. But and you can also find me on other podcasts, on Fun Speculations channel later on tonight, Xbox Ultimate. It'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Get back with the the Fun Speculation family. Taking the holiday break for a bit, but we're going to be back into things. I know he had PM into PM last night, so yeah, it should be a fun time later on tonight as well. But look forward to hopefully seeing everybody in the chat first thing Monday afternoon on Xbox Lunch Break Special. Hope to see you guys there. Have a good weekend.
Thank you very much, brother. Appreciate everyone tuning in. We had over 400 people here today, which is awesome. Again, everyone's still trying to find their footing after the holidays and get themselves together. For Fuzzy Belvedere, for Crispy Bomb, and myself, we want to thank you for being here. A huge thank you to all of the super chats that came in, the new channel members as well. We do, again, all of the generosity. We do pay it forward, and we enjoy doing it. And of course, I'm going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully one day, folks, it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So have a great weekend. Enjoy gaming on whatever console you enjoy gaming on. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of Breakfast with Boom.